What's up, guys? Lucky Locks here. Welcome back to another prediction video. This is going to be for LFA 131, and this card is coming live from Oshkosh, Wisconsin on Friday. Should be a really good card. We have the bantamweight championship on the line with Dan Argueta and Diego Silva in the main event. Also a lot of local Wisconsin talent, as well as some other really good fights on this card, so this should be a good one. And with that said, let's get right into the first one. For the first fight on the main card, we're going to be in the featherweight division, and we have a match between Gary Konkol and David Evans. Konkol is a Wisconsin native, had a very long amateur career with, varying degrees of success. He finished up 8-11 on the amateur circuit. Turned it around as a pro, though, 4-1 coming into this fight. All 4 pro wins have come via stoppage, so 100% finish rate. You love to see that. However, I have to mention that the level of competition has been pretty low. His combined opponent record is 15-31, and he has not beaten anyone with a winning record so far. He's pretty light on his feet on the, in the stand-up, has some side kicks, has some leg kicks at range. 3 wins via submission as well. He's a pretty good offensive wrestler. Did see him get caught in an armbar while he was on top in his 1 pro loss, so definitely going to need to be careful of that stuff when he is engaging in the grappling, but has looked pretty solid as a professional so far. He's going to be coming up against Dave Evans here, who is a guy that also had a really long amateur career, was on the IMMAF circuit for much of his amateur career. He turned pro in 2019, fought on Titan and Shamrock FC to start his career off, and got off to a 4-0 start. Then he was featured on the FAC looking for a fight card not too long ago, was defeated by Gage Young there, and now he's back in the cage, looking to get back on track. Seems to be a guy that kind of bounces around between gyms, likes to pick up new stuff. I know he's done some training in Rufus Sport in the past. Not sure exactly where he did his camp for this fight, but definitely a guy who's used to training with high-level guys for sure. On the feet, he has good movements, good quickness. Has to be switched on in the striking, though. I mean, he was knocked out in his last fight, and the one before that he did get caught early, but managed to get in on a takedown right away and push through. He's a strong wrestler. I believe that was his background prior to getting into MMA. Good entries on his takedowns, good top control. I'm going to go with David Evans to win here. I think that he's got the better skills and the better experience in this fight. Next fight, we're going to be moving up 1 weight class to lightweight at 155 pounds for a match between Kegan Gennrich and Austin Lutchen. So these are 2 guys from the Wisconsin scene here, some homegrown talent for the state on display in this one. And Gennrich was a 4-0 amateur. He's now a 3-2 pro. He has finished 2 of his 3 pro wins. This will be his 2nd appearance on LFA. His last one, he was defeated by Evan Elder, who's now in the UFC, so no shame in that loss. Striking-wise, it's a little bit choppy. The footwork isn't, elite level either, but the grappling is where, he shines a little bit more. He's a jiu-jitsu brown belt. He was a state wrestling champ in Wisconsin and also was a college wrestler at the Division I level. We have seen him taken down, however, in the past, in some of his past fights, he's actually struggled there a little bit. Austin Lutchen is also from Wisconsin, also making his 2nd LFA appearance. First appeared on LFA in his pro debut, where he won via ground and pound. That's a good start to his pro career. Finished the next 4 guys he faced as well. Lost his most recent outing, so he's 5-1. Still maintains that 100% finish rate coming into this matchup. Neither one of these guys, in my opinion, is super sharp standing, but I do think I like Lutchen's movement and striking a little bit better here. In the grappling, he has 4 submissions, so he's really dangerous on the ground as well. Good defensive grappling. Could be important against a guy like Gennrich, especially given the fact that I feel like Gennrich will have a little bit of a size advantage here, so that could definitely come into play. But these are 2 fighters really that do similar things well. I think I'm going to go with Lutchen here. I think he's a little bit cleaner on the feet, has good grappling as well. He opened up -300, and personally I do not think this is a -300 spot for him, down to around -200 now, and honestly, guys, still not sure if I'd really feel comfortable there, but the prediction is going to be Austin Lutchen to get the win in this fight. The next bout on the card is at middleweight, and it's between Roland Dunlap and Hamza Salim. Dunlap was a 6-1 amateur, now a 3-0 pro. His last 2 fights have come on LFA. Won the first one via slam, next one via decision. Definitely has not been in there with the toughest opposition as a pro, but he has looked really good in most of his fights. Looks just like a very dominant wrestler, very physically strong. But Hamza Salim is probably the toughest guy he's had to face so far. Dunlap is going to have the hometown advantage here. He's from Wisconsin, went to college in the state, so I feel like the crowd is definitely going to be in his favor on Friday night. I know he has a bit of a karate background. His stand-up is continuing to improve each time we see him out, but the wrestling, I would say, is definitely his best strength. He's a big physical guy, former college wrestler, and that's where he has most of his success in his fights. Hamza Salim is going to be on the other side of the cage. He started his career 5-2 and then was brought on to Bellator and given two pretty tough opponents. 0-2 on a stint there, now back on the regionals. 5-4, but all of his losses have been to really good names. Christian Edwards, Grant Neal, Jared Revell, and Adam Fugit. Salim absolutely, I would say, has the experience advantage here. Those are four very tough guys. Striking-wise, he does possess an 80% finish rate, and all of those finishes have come via knockout. He's only been finished once himself, and it was a rear naked choke against Christian Edwards in his last fight on Bellator. He's gone the distance in all of his other losses against really tough opponents, so I don't really see this one as a fight that is going to end quickly most of the time. Obviously anything could happen, but I feel like this probably at least gets into the second and third round most of the time. He does have some jiu-jitsu in his back pocket. He's training at a good gym at American Top Team Portland. That's a gym that's continuing to put out some good prospects and definitely getting stronger. And you're just seeing more good guys that are training out of that gym. So I definitely like what they have going on over there on the West Coast at ATT Portland. I think this is the toughest test that Dunlap has gotten so far in his pro MMA career. However, I think he can pass this test. I'm not sure I see him being able to finish Salim like I was mentioning, but I think he can use that wrestling to win at least 2 of the 3 rounds. Not crazy about laying the chalk on him here on the money line, however, but I am going to go with Roland Dunlap to win. He's a guy that, wrestling-wise, I'm pretty high on. I like what I see out of him so far. Physical guy, very strong, and I think that he can pass this test against Hamza Salim here. Next fight, we're going to be at welterweight for what I think is definitely one of the 2 best fights on this card here. I'm really looking forward to this one. We have Myktybek Orolbay coming up against Jalin Fuller. Orolbay is listed with a 6-1 record on Tapology. He is the lightweight champ in Open FC. Looks like he's fought mostly at 155 for most of his career. Was scheduled against Landon Quinones at 155 on Titan in March. Then was going to step in on short notice against Tommy Aaron at a catchweight of 165 on LFA. Neither of those ended up happening. And then he was booked against Ryland Charlebois at welterweight for the last LFA card. Unfortunately, that fight was canceled due to COVID protocols. I'm not sure on which side. I would have to assume Charlebois, since we're seeing Orolbay back in here so quickly. So now he has a fight here against Jalin Fuller, who fought on that card actually that he was supposed to be on and got a round 1 finish. Orolbay looks to be a really strong wrestler. You can find his fight from ACA Young Eagles in Russia on YouTube, and although he did lose that decision, I thought he looked really good. I thought even you could have given the decision to him, just watching it back, and I do wonder, though, what he's going to look like at 170 pounds, because he's going to be fighting a pretty big welterweight in Jalin Fuller here. Fuller has fought at 185 before and is back at 170 again for the last few fights, whereas Orolbay is used to fighting at 155 and is actually up at 170 here, so I feel like that's definitely something to note and something to think about. Jalin Fuller, I think we know this guy pretty well by this point. If you watch regional MMA, if you watch LFA a lot, you've definitely seen Jalin Fuller fight before. He's one of the better regional welterweights, got a 6-1 record, just got a round 1 submission on the last LFA card 2 weeks prior. He's a very good striker, very technical, rangy, long reach at 170 pounds as well. And he's got good power in his hands. He's finished 3 of his 6 wins via round 1 knockout, other 2 finishes via submission for an 83% finish rate overall. So Jalin Fuller is definitely going into the cage to get guys out of there. He's also never been finished himself. He does have some submission skills. In his one loss, he did kind of struggle with the grappling of Bruno Assis. That was at 185, to be fair. The defensive grappling has been pretty solid in his other fights. Definitely, though, there's a blueprint there for Orolbay to exploit. I think that kind of plays into Orolbay's fighting style as well. The potential size factor is an important component of this matchup for me. So kind of 2 things that I'm thinking about when I'm thinking about this matchup in terms of, the physical stature of these guys, where we have Jalin Fuller, who is probably the bigger guy here, kind of a tweener between 170 and 185. I feel like he'd probably benefit from a 175-pound division, something like that, something in between welterweight and middleweight. So for me, I'm thinking about how does the size advantage of Fuller affect Orolbay's grappling attack, and also got to think about how Fuller is going to do cutting down to 170 again so soon after his last fight. You know, this is a guy who's struggled on the scales to make welterweight in the past. He did make it very well last time, looked really good and had a great performance. But it's just something to think about. You know, it's always going to be in the back of your mind. So I actually think I'm going to side with the slight underdog in Myktybek Orolbay here. I think that if he really comes in here ready to wrestle, ready to use that grappling, I was just impressed with the wrestling that he was able to display on ACA Young Eagles in Russia against a good grappler. You know, he's in there fighting against good wrestlers a lot. And although I am a little bit worried about the size, and, you know, obviously you got to be a little bit worried about Jalin Fuller touching these guys' chins because he loves to do that and he's really good at it. Even in that fight against Bruno Assis where he lost, he was able to touch him on the chin early and almost had him out of there. So, you know, I'm going to go with Orolbay here. He's going to be the more rested fighter. Obviously, Fuller fought 2 weeks ago. He ended the fight pretty quickly, so, you know, he didn't take any damage, and he's probably still in good shape, but I don't know, man. Has to cut weight twice in 3 weeks. I think I'm going to go with Orolbay to use that wrestling here. I don't know if I'm going to end up getting to the window here. Fuller opened up as a much heavier favorite, and at those kind of numbers, maybe I'd be a little more inclined to play Orolbay, but this is probably one that I'm just going to end up sitting back and watching, and if I had to bet this one, I think I would have to slightly lean towards the underdog here. So we're here at the co-main event now for a bout between Tim Hilley and Darrius Flowers at 185. So Hilley turned pro in 2015, started off 7-0, won his first 2 LFA appearances, beat Tyler Vogel in the second one, and got a title shot against Brendan Allen. So in that title fight, he did lose via rear naked choke in the 3rd round, then actually went on a little bit of a skid, lost his next 2 fights, one to Jamal Pogues and one to Jesse Murray. Those are 2 Contender Series guys, very good regional middleweights, so not really bad losses, but definitely ones that, you know, you'd like to get a win in 1 or 2 of those. But he has the advantage in strength of schedule for sure. Didn't fight from September 2020 to March of this year when he came back and picked up a round 1 knockout in FCF. So I think that should get him tuned up for this one. Striking-wise, he has a long reach at 77.5 inches. Should have some size in this matchup. He likes to strike. He's pretty good standing. Has a couple submission victories as well. But, you know, the fights that he loses tend to be the ones where his opponents are able to have success in the clinch, have success in the wrestling. He's going to be coming up against Darrius Flowers here, who is 10-5-1. We just saw him 2 weeks ago get a round 2 knockout in LFA 130, and he actually fought and won the week before that as well. So he's coming in for his 3rd fight in like 4 weeks here on a 2-fight win streak right now, and according to Tapology, he has another one scheduled for next week. So this guy is just super active, which, I mean, I guess you like to see, but at what point does that kind of become a detriment to you is what you really got to wonder in this one. Flowers is 3-2 over his last 5, 70% finish rate. 6 of those finishes have been knockouts, so he obviously has that power in his hands. Will be giving up a lot of height and reach in this one. You know, he gave up a lot of height and reach in his last one, though, too, however, and he was able to find the knockout there, so I'm not sure that's such a big deal, but almost all of his losses have come via submission. He's not a superb wrestler, but he is very strong, and I could see him getting highly to the ground here, to be honest. This one is kind of tough. It's kind of a sneaky tough matchup. I think that Flowers has the power to hurt Hilley. I think that he also could have a sneaky wrestling path in this fight, if I'm being honest, but I just think that Hilley is a little bit more polished on the feet. Going to have a big size advantage. He's going to have the home crowd advantage. You know, he's from Wisconsin. I feel like him being from Wisconsin is probably one of the reasons why this fight is at the co-main event over the previous featured fight that we talked about. So I don't think that this is going to be, you know, a super cut and dry matchup, but I do like Hilley here, and I also kind of have to favor him based on the fact that this won't be his 3rd fight in like 4 weeks or whatever it is for Flowers. I gotta think that that's gonna help him out a little bit. So yeah, I'm going with Hilley in this one. I feel like it's just a little bit more polished, but definitely could be a little bit sweaty. And now we've finally arrived at the main event of the evening. This is gonna be for the bantamweight championship in LFA. Dan Argueta versus Diego Silva. This should be a banger of a fight right here. Dan Argueta, Ultimate Fighter contestant, making his 5th appearance on LFA. This time it's for a belt. He is 4-0 in the promotion, 7-0 as a pro. Did have that loss to Ricky Tercios on the Ultimate Fighter, but obviously those are considered exhibition bouts due to the format, so it doesn't show up on the official record. And, you know, like I said last time we talked about Dan Argueta, I think that's good that he was able to kind of get that setback, have a learning experience, and have it not count, you know, officially on his record. So he's going to come into this fight hungry to get the belt. he's probably thinking that with a win here, he could definitely punch a ticket to the UFC. So I have no doubt that he's going to be very motivated coming in here to get this win. Obviously, Ricky Tercios went on to win the show and is currently on the UFC roster. So I don't think that loss on Ultimate Fighter is too big of a deal. And, like I said, Argueta could be joining him there soon. So we kind of know what we're going to get from Dan Argueta at this point. He's an extremely strong wrestler, super aggressive, really good pressure, good cardio. Definitely deserves the title shot here. Argueta is a guy that I'm pretty high on. I think he could be in the UFC right now. The knock is that obviously he's a little bit one-dimensional, and to a certain extent it's true, but his strength and his wrestling ability at 135 pounds is really effective. I think he can compete in the UFC for sure. Obviously, there are areas of his game I think he'd need to continue to improve to be a top contender there, but I feel personally like this is one of the very top bantamweights on the regionals right now. He's going to be fighting against Diego Silva, who was 14-6, 3-2 in his last 5, lost to Jay Perrin on Cage Titans, coming into this fight on 2 wins, had a rear naked choke finish on SFT in Brazil, and then wins a decision over Andre Sukumtop for the bantamweight belt on CES. And that was a really impressive win right there. I mean, he pretty much dominated him, and that's a former UFC fighter. Striking is, not really all that good. However, I don't really rate Argueta striking that highly either. Silva is aggressive on the feet. I feel like, potentially he could have some success at range. I think he's going to be the longer guy here. He's a strong grappler, though. The wrestling is pretty decent. Jiu-jitsu game is good. Physically strong as well. Has good ground and pound. And like I said, really just bossed Andre Sukumtop in the grappling department for the majority of that 5-round fight. Dan Argueta, though, is not going to be easy to implement a wrestling game against. That's for sure. This is honestly a pretty close fight. Both fight a very grapple-heavy style. Both are very strong and aggressive. I just think Argueta plays that game a little bit better. Could be dicey on the feet. Could play out closer than what the line suggests, but I'm going to trust Dan Argueta to win the belt on Friday and punch his ticket to the UFC or potentially a Contender Series shot. So that's kind of where my head's at with this main event. Think it's going to be a banger of a fight. Going with Dan Argueta to get it done. And that's going to wrap up my LFA 131 predictions, guys. Thank you very much for tuning into this video. Really appreciate it. As always, best of luck this weekend with any bets that you choose to make. And I will see you on the channel for the next video.